to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, November 1st, 2017. I am Dave Biddle, and I'm joined by the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. Bax, of course, the first college football playoff rankings of the season came out last night. Buckeyes, surprisingly, at least in my opinion, were sixth. I thought they'd be third or fourth. Let's push it ahead, though. They're sixth. If they win out, they're 12-1, Big Ten champs. Do you think there's any way they get left out? I mean, do you think Ohio State's definitely in at 12-1?
I think it'd be very hard to leave them out. I agree with you. They were lower than I expected. This is the first rankings, let's not forget. And the first rankings mean jack. All are the committee's initial thought on strength of schedule. And teams always lose. Let's never forget that. But if you look at it, I mean, Alabama and Georgia might be 1 and 2. Whoever loses that game is almost surely going to be out. They're not going to take two teams from the SEC when there's a bunch of one-loss champs from other conferences and Notre Dame floating around. So that's not going to happen. I think I was most surprised to see Clemson sitting where they were just because they haven't really played a tough schedule yet either. I mean, you look at who they've beaten this year, it's not exactly impressive. They certainly don't have a win the caliber of OSU's, and their loss to Syracuse is probably worse. So that was a little bit of a surprise. But I will say this. The only crazy scenario I see where OSU gets left out involves a scenario where Oklahoma wins out. And then they can point to their win at Ohio Stadium to be their reasoning for putting them in over OSU. Which, to be fair, they won by 15 points, even though we all think OSU would rampage them if they played again. The truth of the matter is they did win, and that has to count for something. So them losing another game in the Big 12, such as this weekend against Oklahoma State, would be ideal for Ohio State because, to me, that eliminates the last of the roadblocks. Because if you look at it that way, then Oklahoma's lost, then Ohio State's going to go over any other Big 12 team. Oklahoma's only ahead of the Buckeyes because of a head-to-head record. And then you have Notre Dame, who's going to, let's say they win out, they stay in. Let's say Clemson wins out, they stay in. And then whichever team wins the SEC is in, which leaves Ohio State as the Big 12 champ. Because the Pac-12 is not even a factor in this. And Ohio State's going to get in over those others. So if you're concerned about it, which I'm really not, root against Oklahoma this weekend and root against Oklahoma hard.
Urban Meyer says he doesn't really talk about it much with his players. I have to think they talk about it, not a lot. I mean, they're focused on, the matters at hand, like beating Iowa, things like that. But, I mean, they talk about everything. The players are talking about, the coaches are talking about. Are they having meetings about the college football playoff or that's why they're getting together? No, I'm not suggesting that. But I have to think that the team, if anything, this fires them up. They're coming off their biggest win of the year, and they're only sixth, and they're third in the other polls. I mean, I think Urban Meyer and the boys are going to be fired up this Saturday because of this ranking.
Urban will use anything he can for motivation. I mean, we've talked about this how many times over the years, how he's a master motivator, and his entire goal is to use whatever he can to get his team to perform at peak levels. So, like you said, this is something that fans and writers are going to obsess about because it's another piece of evidence discussing the big picture. But the players and coaches can't think big picture. They have to think, how am I going to beat Iowa this week on the road? And part of that's going to be, the oldest card, the most commonly used card in sports is the no respect card, right? And you know why? Because it works. People don't like being disrespected in any walk of life. So you can convince these young men that the committee is disrespecting them, and they're going to go out and show the committee how good they really are, then yeah, absolutely you can play it. So I'm sure it'll be something that's used, but it's not something that is going to be well, guys, we're screwed if we don't win. They're going to use it as hey, let's show them how good you really are, and don't worry, things will work out.
JT Barrett coming off what I think is the best performance by an Ohio State quarterback I have ever seen, considering the circumstances. I mean, the Penn State's pressuring him. I mean, he was 33 of 39, and that includes at least 3 drops. And he was the game high. Had the game high total for rushing with 95 yards. I mean, he was making tough throws. I give a lot of credit to Kevin Wilson, our guy, Kevin Wilson, and AKA Ron Wilson. And Ryan Day's done a great job too as co-offensive coordinator and quarterbacks coach. So I give a lot of credit to Kevin Wilson and Ryan Day. But JT Barrett, I mean, we talked about last week how much he's improved, but now he's proved it against top competition when the chips were down. Again, I mean, we've seen a lot of great games by Ohio State quarterbacks over the years. I put this one number one, considering everything that was, at stake. Just your thoughts on J.T. Barrett, Bax.
J.T. Barrett played a perfect football game in almost every respect against Penn State. That J.T. Barrett can beat any team in the country. No question about it. J.T. was put in a position where he had to essentially throw the ball all over the field for the last quarter of the game to win the game, and he did it. That's the sort of thing that, the J.T. we saw against Oklahoma isn't there anymore. That guy was not confident. That guy didn't make decisions. That guy was afraid to throw his receivers open. He stared people down. A lot of things were very, very, very different 2 months ago from what we have today in J.T. Barrett. And that's got to be the byproduct of consistent, solid coaching. J.T. being willing to accept criticism and improve himself. But, yeah, I mean, there's very few games you could even remotely compare. I mean, maybe Troy Smith against Michigan in 2006, but even then there was some bad luck interceptions, right? So I would have to put this as the finest game I've seen an Ohio State quarterback play, too. J.T. Barrett put himself squarely in the front of the Heisman Trophy discussions, in my opinion. And here's the great thing. If he keeps playing anywhere near this level that he's been playing at since essentially UNLV, I don't know how anybody's going to stop Ohio State. This team's going on the kind of run that Kevin Wilson's Oklahoma team in 2008 did, where they scored 50 points every game for like the last half the season. That's what OSU's doing right now. And the guys left on their schedule, they have three good teams that are not great left in Iowa, Michigan State, and Michigan. None of them are going to be good enough to stop Ohio State's offense. I mean, let's be real honest here. Michigan gave up a boatload of points to Penn State 2 weeks ago. You think they're going to stop JT? So that's the trump card here is you want to talk about the Buckeyes and any potential struggles they have on special teams or whatever. Well, the good news is your quarterback's probably going to make sure you score 50 points, so it doesn't matter anyway. And the level of confidence I have in J.T. Barrett today compared to the level of confidence I had before is like being on the other side of the planet. I can't put out, there's no bigger gulf. It's like interstellar, how much difference the confidence level is in J.T. Barrett now versus in early September. It's night and day, and what he's done is one of the things we're going to talk about for a very, very long time after he leaves Ohio State.
The other player on offense that's exponentially improved, and we have never seen this before, is Isaiah Prince. With Barrett, we saw it in 2014 when he had a good offensive coordinator. Finished fifth for the Heisman. Now, he's playing better now than he did then, Barrett is. But Isaiah Prince, backs, in my opinion, was the worst starting offensive lineman. I'm not forgetting guys like J.B. Shugarts and guys like that. Probably the worst starting offensive lineman at Ohio State since I've been covering the team. I mean, in big games, he was worse against Penn State, Michigan, Clemson. I mean, Isaiah Prince was an absolute turnstile. Now, Pro Football Focus says that he actually had a better game than J.T. Barrett did, which I don't know how that's possible. But the point of the matter is Isaiah Prince has turned himself from a complete liability into a strength, and I'm shocked. And kudos to him.
Yeah, I agree with you. We talked about this last year. But the only comparison I had for Isaiah Prince last year was the year in 2008. Whenever Tressel had to play Brian Browning, who was a good guard at right tackle the whole year, and he just got rampaged on the outside. Remember that Aaron Maven versus him game in 2008? It's a horror film. Don't ever go watch it. But Prince, I think when I recognized when Prince was having a pretty decent season was the Oklahoma game. I left that stadium spitting mad, thinking he was having another just can't block anybody festival, right? And then I went and rewatched the game and realized he didn't play that badly. And that was an interesting sign to see. And right now, Ohio State has not one but two legit tackles. And we wouldn't be talking about JT being 33 for 39 if he wasn't getting excellent pass protection. I mean, how many plays did JT get hit after he threw? Not a lot. He had time to stand there in a clean pocket. And now there's that play, in the winning drive where he hit Terry McLaurin on an out with the guy smashing him in the face on a blitz. But that didn't happen very often, right? And a lot of the credit for that has to go to the performance of your tackles and pass rush. And, of course, Billy Price for any recognition when it comes to pass protection calls. So, yeah, the way Isaiah Prince played this year is incredibly important, especially in light of the fact that I have no idea who the third tackle is now that Brandon Bowen's hurt. I mean, to be very honest, if we lose either one of those guys, it's a bad thing. But I would have said before the season Jamarco Jones was the only capable tackle on the team. So now we have two. And that's a real credit to Isaiah Prince. But, hey, he's a five-star kid. Eventually you figured he'd start playing like a five-star, right? At least you hope.
That's right. Yeah, there was always hope. He you always thought, like, well, he's got the frame. He had the accolades coming out of high school. You know, it wasn't his fault that he was thrust into the fire as really a redshirt freshman. I mean, I know he was a sophomore last year, but he hardly played as a true freshman, hardly saw the field at all. He was really like a first-year guy last year, so kudos to him and kudos to the coaching staff. Greg Stodrala's taken a lot of heat. Kudos to him for the job he's doing. I know Kevin Wilson's had an impact on that offensive line, no doubt about it. Great stuff, as always, from the People's Champ, Matt Baxendell. You can catch his column every week on Bucknuts. It is The Bucket, runs every Sunday, so make sure you catch Bax's column. And thanks to our listeners out there for tuning into the show. I appreciate it and hope you have a great day. Let's hear that Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.